Welcome to the Megacast. I'm Tyler Keefe in the studios of our flagship station, Civic Center TV and 89.3 Lakes FM. In addition, today, as always, we're also on Birmingham Area Municipal Access and City Cable 15 of Southfield. Those three community television stations are on Comcast, Channel 15, and AT&T, Channel 99. You can also join us on community television live and live to tape on the media network of Waterford in Waterford and Orion Neighborhood Television in Orion Township and Lake Orion. Those channels, Comcast Channel 10 and AT&T Channel 99. Join us on the radio as well on 88.1 WBFH, the BIF, the service of the Bloomfield Hills School District, serving Birmingham, Bloomfield Township, Bloomfield Hills, Troy, and the surrounding areas as well. You can also find us online on our Facebook pages, facebook.com/CivicCenterTV15 and facebook.com/LakesFM. And join us on our website, CivicCenterTV.com. Just click on our Watch Live link on your computer browser. That's going to be top of the page. On your mobile phone's web browser, left margin of the screen, top left, going to click that little button up there with a few lines. That'll bring out a menu on the left side of the screen, a drop-down menu that will have Watch Live second up from the bottom, and you'll be able to watch us live on our website at CivicCenterTV.com. You can also find us on My Michigan TV or MyMy on MyMyTV.com and on the My Michigan TV app. Go to MyMyTV.com not only to watch us live and some of our interviews live to tape as well and on demand on their website, but also to learn where you can download the My Michigan TV app on your smartphone and on your smart TV. Again, that is MyMyTV.com. My as in possessive, my, M-I as in Michigan, TV.com. You can learn more about all the places we broadcast live to tape, and on demand by going to our website at CivicCenterTV.com/Megacast or click on our Megacast link. And there you'll learn more information about what we do here on the show. Find links to each and every one of our partnering television, radio, and web outlets so you can visit them for more programming throughout the week and throughout the weekends as well, and figure out all the other things that they do beyond the 2 hours a day, 5 days a week of the Megacast. And you can find all of our full shows and interviews on demand, CivicCenterTV.com/Megacast. And right next door to that is our coronavirus page, CivicCenterTV.com/coronavirus, where it has a number of different resources important to you every day and throughout this pandemic, including links to the CDC resources, Michigan Department of Health and Human Services, and the Oakland County Health Division's resources on COVID-19. That includes the spread of COVID, the variants of COVID, the efficacy of safety precautions such as masking and distancing, the vaccines, including booster shots, including those reduced dosage vaccines for children ages 5 to 11, the Pfizer-BioNTech vaccine that is now available nationally after emergency use authorization by the FDA and CDC last week, bringing that out to market, and it's available in places like Oakland County. And you can sign up and find places where you can get your kids vaccinated by going to our website, CivicCenterTV.com/coronavirus, where you'll also be able to find many links to local municipalities here in the Oakland County area, so you can keep up with how COVID-19 is affecting city business in your hometown. Again, CivicCenterTV.com/coronavirus. And then every morning we scour the publications and the journals, the newspapers all across the state of Michigan, in Detroit, Grand Rapids, Lansing, up north, everywhere, all across the state, to find your top stories every day affecting the state of Michigan, both on the COVID front and beyond. And today, yesterday was Monday, Michigan released its new COVID-19 numbers. This from the Oakland Press. Michigan public health officials reported 8,911 new COVID cases and 47 additional virus deaths over the past 3 days in their Monday report. The 3-day total brought the state's total confirmed cases and deaths to a little over 1.1 million and 22,522 deaths since the onset of the pandemic. Over the past week, Michigan has reported 34,000 new COVID cases, which is the second most among all states in the union, according to the CDC, behind California with over 44,000 new reported cases last week. Of the 47 deaths reported, 21 were identified during a vital records review. Over the past 3 days, the state averaged 2,970 cases daily, down from 5,047 per day from November 4th to 5th, a 41% decrease from that period. The state's 7-day COVID average and test positivity rates continued to remain high due to the spread of the virus, mainly among unvaccinated residents. The MDHHS reported that the 7-day average case rates are decreasing for all age groups, with rates highest among children ages 10 to 19, 410 cases per day per 100,000 people in the population. Last week, all age groups experienced a 13 to 23% decrease in their case rates compared to the previous week before that. Michigan's 7-day average case rate is 346 cases per day per 100,000 residents. The state's 7-day average positivity rate in testing is between 10 and 15%, with over 294,000 COVID-19 diagnostic tests being performed during that time period. The state remained in the high community transmission category, which is defined by the CDC as averaging at least 100 new cases per day per 100,000 people over a 7-day period. According to the CDC, Michigan's 7-day average rate is 8th highest in the country. The CDC also reported that 66% of all U.S. counties have high community transmission levels, including all 83 Michigan counties remaining in that category. As of November 1st, there were an average of 265 hospital admissions daily due to COVID-19. The average daily hospital admission rate of 123.8 hospital admissions per million is the highest for those 80 and older. In schools on Monday, the MDHHS reported 104 new K-12 school outbreaks and clusters involving 666 cases. The MDHHS recently revisited its definition of a school-associated outbreak and a school-associated cluster to promote consistent reporting amongst states. Moving forward, the MDHHS will report clusters and outbreaks as combined totals every Monday. The MDHHS is continuing to report that school districts without mask rules are seeing higher case rates and faster case rate rises than districts with mask rules in place. Wow, it's almost like that's what public health officials have been telling us for the better part of 2 years. Maybe they know what they're talking about. I don't know. I'm not a medical expert. They are. Maybe I should listen to them. I do. You should do. The Michigan Redistricting Commission discussed the stalemate scenario recently in regards to its mapping scenarios. This is from the Detroit Free Press. The deadline for individual members of the Michigan Independent Citizens Redistricting Commission to submit their own maps passed Monday at 12 p.m., with the commission sticking with its rules it previously adopted, requiring individual commissioners' maps to undergo a 45-day public comment period in order to be considered. 3 commissioners submitted their own maps, according to the commission's communications and outreach director, Edward Woods III. Rebecca Satella, the independent chair of the commission, submitted a U.S. House, Michigan Senate, and Michigan House map. Rhonda Lang, a Republican commissioner, submitted a U.S. House and State Senate map. And Brittany Kellum, a Democratic commissioner, submitted a State Senate map. Some commissioners said they opted not to submit any because they would prefer to adopt a map drawn collaboratively by the group. The commission will consider maps submitted by individual commissioners in the event none of the maps the group spent months drawing receives the majority vote of the 13-member commission, with the support of at least 2 Democratic, 2 Republican, and 2 independent members. The commission recently approved 3 U.S. House, 3 Michigan Senate, and 3 Michigan House maps, setting them up for a final vote by the end of the year. The Michigan Constitution requires those collaborative maps to undergo a 45-day public comment period, but the constitutional language is somewhat ambiguous on whether the public comment requirement applies to the maps submitted by individual members as well, or just to the collectively made maps then going into the public forum. The Commission's General Counsel, Julianne Bastula, said the process adopted by the Commission last week, laying out the procedure for submitting and considering maps drawn by individual commissioners, was at odds with her interpretation of the Michigan Constitution. But during a Monday meeting, Bastula said the group did not need to change its rules based on the guidance provided by the Commission's litigation counsel, Baker Hostetler, in a confidential memo reviewed by the commissioners. MC Rothorn, the Democratic vice chair of the commission, said he hopes the group will adopt the maps it drew together. Quote, "I think we want more people to trust this process, and when they see us working together, that builds trust. So I think that is our greatest hope," he said. He continued on saying, quote, "I haven't seen the individual maps. Maybe they're great, maybe they're great, but we certainly worked hard as a collaborative group to put forward what we considered to be good maps," said Steve Lett, an independent commissioner. Lett put forward a motion during the Commission's November 4th meeting to allow individual commissioners to advance their own maps to a 45-day public comment period without the approval of the Commission. The motion passed 9-3. Lett also put forward a motion to confine the maps that could be considered in the event the group fails to adopt one of its own to only those individual commission maps that have undergone a 45-day public comment period. That motion passed by 8-4. Lett argued the state constitution does not allow individual members to put forward a plan that neither the commissioners nor the public has had a chance to vet. Quote, "Nowhere in here does it say you can get to put a new plan totally out of thin air because you can't decide," he said. If the commissioners do not adopt one of its own maps and consider maps drawn by individual commissioners, each member would then rank those plans in order of preference. A commissioner's last choice would receive 1 point, and their top choice would receive the number of points equal to the total number of plans submitted. The Commission would adopt the highest ranked plan if it meets certain criteria. If the highest ranked plan was submitted by a Democrat or a Republican, it must also fall in the top half of ranked plans by at least 2 commissioners not affiliated with the party of the commissioner who submitted the plan. If the highest ranked plan was submitted by an independent, it must also fall in the top half of ranked plans by at least 2 commissioners affiliated with both the Democratic or the Republican party, so 2 of each. That would be 4 total commissioners plus the one that then submitted that plan, and an additional 2 to make that majority of the commission. If no plans meet that requirement, the Secretary of State would randomly select a final plan among all of the plans submitted. If 2 plans are tied, the Secretary of State would break the tie by randomly selecting one of the plans. Maybe they're just going to put in like one of those big lottery draw bins and just roll it around and break it out like they used to do the NBA draft lottery. Hopefully, unlike they did with the Knicks that one time when they froze an envelope, allegedly. Patrick Ewing was then drafted. A completely different scenario, but seems a little bit odd that the solution would be, well, if they can't agree to one set of maps or to certain sets of maps, then it's going to be a ranked choice. And if there's still a tie after that ranked choice, then it's a random draw. That seems to put a more risky scenario in place. That being said, that really only comes into play if they're tied between 2 relatively solid, at least in the eyes of the commission, choices. So while odd, still somewhat effective and better off than being gerrymandered by one party and then that setting the tone for the next 10 years. Finally, making headlines on our website at civiccentertv.com/coronavirus. Good news for drivers. The roads may be getting very safer very soon as Congress has mandated a new vehicle technology to slow down or stop drunken driving. This is from the Associated Press via the Detroit News. Congress has created a new requirement for automakers find a high-tech way to keep drunken people from driving. It's one of the mandates along with a new burst of spending aimed at improving auto safety amid escalating road fatalities in the $1 trillion infrastructure package that President Joe Biden is expected to sign very soon. Under the legislation, monitoring systems to stop intoxicated drivers would roll out in all new vehicles as early as 2026 after the Transportation Department assesses the best form of technology to install in millions of vehicles and automakers are given time to comply. In all, about $17 billion is allotted to road safety programs, the biggest increase in such funding in decades, according to the Eno Center for Transportation. Transportation Secretary at the U.S. level, Pete Buttigieg, said on Monday that that could mean more protected bike paths and greener spaces built into busy roadways. Quote, "It's monumental," said Alex Ott, the national president of the Mothers Against Drunk Driving. Ott said the package, quote, "is the single most important legislation," and closed quote, "in the group's history that marks, quote unquote, the beginning of the end of drunk driving." She continued on saying, quote, "It will virtually eliminate the #1 killer on America's roads," and closed quote. Last month, the National Highway Traffic Safety Administration reported an estimated 20,160 people died in traffic collisions in the first half of 2021, the highest first half total since 2006. The agency has pointed to speeding, impaired driving, and not wearing seatbelts during the coronavirus pandemic as factors behind the spike. Each year, around 10,000 people are killed due to alcohol-related crashes in the U.S., making up nearly 30% of all traffic fatalities, according to the National Highway Traffic and Safety Administration. The voluminous bill also requires automakers to install rear seat reminders to alert parents if a child is left inadvertently in the back seat, a mandate that could begin in 2025 after the NHTSA completes its rulemaking on the issue. Since 1990, about 1,000 children have died in vehicular heat stroke situations, after the highest total in a single year was 54 in 2018, according to kidsandcars.org. Congress, meanwhile, directed the agency to update decades-old safety standards to avert deaths from collapsing front seat backs and issued a rule requiring automatic emergency braking and lane departure warnings in all passenger vehicles, though no date was set for compliance on that front. Secretary Buttigieg, promoting the legislation's benefits at a White House briefing, said he had traveled the country in recent months and seen too many roadside memorials for people who had died in preventable traffic deaths. He pointed to a new $5 billion Safe Streets and Roads for All program under his department that will in part promote healthier streets for cyclists and pedestrians. The federal program, which he acknowledged may take several months to set up, would support cities' campaigns to end traffic fatalities with a quote-unquote Vision Zero effort that could build traffic roundabouts to slow cars, carve out new bike paths, and widen sidewalks, and even reduce some roads to shift commuters toward public transit or other modes of transportation. Still, safety advocates worry that the bipartisan bill missed opportunities to address more forcefully an emerging U.S. crisis of road fatalities and urge the Transportation Department to deliver on immediate solutions. That full article from the Detroit News via the Associated from the Associated Press via the Detroit News is on our website, civiccentertv.com/coronavirus. Have a really good show ahead of you today. Coming up next, I'll be speaking with Amira Daboul, a cook and author of Awafi from Amira's Kitchen, a Chaldean cookbook. We'll speak to her next on the show about her book, which I have right here, and I'll show it to you, and we'll talk to her about it at 10:20. Coming up at 10:40, Dr. Andrea Stoner, a neurologist from the Michigan Institute of Neurological Disorders, will join me to talk about National Alzheimer's Awareness Month. At 11 o'clock, Chuck Christian, a former University of Michigan tight end and a survivor of Dr. Robert Anderson, will be joining me to talk about that scandal at U of M and where they're at currently, the survivors, in their fight for justice in that situation as they deal with the University of Michigan and they try to have their case be heard properly. At 11:20, Lalthsa Cunningham, the financial capability supervisor at JVS Human Services, will join me, and then we'll cap off the show at 11:40 with Anthony Guest, an associate professor of theater at Oakland University and the director of the upcoming production at OU of the 25th annual Putnam County Spelling Bee, as well as two actors from the show, Chanel Beach and Braden Haggerty. That is all coming up next. You're watching and listening to the Megacast.
Did you know that nearly 3.31 million Americans don't get their annual checkup? Going to the doctor regularly is extremely important and is a crucial factor in maintaining good health. Make sure you are visiting your local doctor often and telling them about any health concerns you have. For more information, contact your local healthcare provider. This message is brought to you by WBHS Digital Media Arts Program and 89.3 Lakes FM.
People are getting out to walk and bike in higher numbers. More vulnerable road users and higher speed traffic can be a dangerous combination. Crash severity has increased, so if you're driving, be sure to slow down and look for people. There's no need to speed. If you're biking, ride with traffic. If you're walking, avoid stepping into the road if possible. If you have to walk in the street, walk facing traffic. Learn more at walkbikedrivesafe.org.
When times get dark, we can't see the help that's all around us. When you don't know where to turn, let 211 be your guiding light.
How can I help you?
Our guides are ready to connect you with the help you need. For help with food, healthcare, mental health, and other resources. Call 211 or visit 211.org. 211. Get connected, get help.
Parents do a lot of worrying. Get your kids caught up on childhood vaccines to protect them from these 14 preventable diseases, and you'll have 14 fewer things to worry about. Vaccines are safe and effective and save lives. So let's get caught up on vaccines and worry about something else. Get the facts at ivaccinate.org.
Back to the Megacast. I'm Tyler Keefe alongside Calvin Brown, our studio producer and board operator, in our studios in West Bloomfield Township, where we broadcast live from 10 a.m. to 12 noon, Monday through Friday on the Megacast. You can also find all of our shows, full episodes, and interviews, as well as all the places we broadcast online on civiccentertv.com/megacast, as well as all of our on-demand episodes, full and individual interviews there as well. civiccentertv.com/megacast. Joining us now is Amira Daboul. She is a cook and author of Awafi from Amira's Kitchen, a Chaldean cookbook that I have right here in my hands with me today, and you can get that in many other places, but we'll talk to her about what is in that cookbook and her approach to cooking as well. Amira, thanks for being with us today.
Hi.
Appreciate having you on. So tell us a little bit about the cookbook, but let's start off with, because it's a Chaldean cookbook, it's all based on Chaldean cooking. What are some of the characteristics of Chaldean cooking?
It's we have all traditional recipes from my grandma and my mom and my mother-in-law. We're all made from scratch. Our cooking is all clean and healthy, and we make it from scratch. We use no cans, no frozen food, nothing. Everything is clean and healthy food we have. And these are the recipes that have been passed on from generation to generation, and I wrote them down to keep them all in the book and to pass them to my kids and grandkids and future to become generations.
So then what prompted you then to, I mean, obviously you mentioned that the familial aspects of things, passing these recipes on to your family was important, and that's part of the reason you compiled this cookbook. But you're also releasing this cookbook to the general public as well. What motivated you to then turn this into a cookbook that would then be published so that other people that maybe aren't from a Chaldean background can learn to cook Chaldean traditional foods and enjoy them themselves?
I wanted to share our traditions and our recipes and the way we cook for everybody. I wanted to keep our generation, my grandma's and my tradition from the village we came from, because the village doesn't exist like it used to be before. And I wanted to capture it and put it all in the book to have it. When you put it in a book, it's going to stay there. We're not going to lose it. So I wanted to not to lose it. The tradition and the recipes, my mom and my grandma and my mother-in-law, we baked them, cooked together days and day after.
So tell us more about your history cooking. You mentioned that you cooked a lot with your family earlier on in your life, but do you also do this professionally now? Is this more of just a hobby of yours that's turned into this great passion? How did you really become so passionate about cooking, particularly these traditional Chaldean dishes?
It's just a hobby, and I needed it to do something, and I was really inspired by my kids and my daughters and my nieces and nephews. They wanted the recipes to be written down, so they have them, and that would motivate me to put it in a book and to write it down.
We're joined by Amira Daboul. Oh, please continue.
And that's why I wrote it, and it made me motivated. It's just my passion. I just love to cook. It brings me happiness, and I enjoy baking and cooking. That's all I like to do with it.
We're joined by Amira Daboul. She is the cook and author of Awafi from Amira's Kitchen, a Chaldean cookbook, which is it available now, Amira? Where can people get a copy of Awafi?
www.amiraskitchen.com. You can go and order it, or you can, Babylon has it, and the Babylon and Ashtar, the Middle Eastern market, they carry it.
We're joined by Amira Daboul. She is a cook and the author of A Wafi from Amira's Kitchen, a Chaldean cookbook, as she said, available in a number of different places. If you would be interested in learning some of these traditional Chaldean dishes and recipes from someone that has had these passed down to her through generations of family and is continuing to do that, not only in her family, but to yours as well. And so, Amira, what are some of your favorite dishes in this cookbook and just overall that you enjoy cooking for your family or that your family enjoys cooking with you?
We like to bake and cook together all the time. My daughters always help me as I help my mom. We grew up helping, working together. My mom, my mother-in-law, we always bake and cook together. So all dishes are great. We have the best dishes ever. They're all healthy and nice dishes. And I'm going to share with you a recipe I prepared for you. It's baklava, where is the dessert we use in happy occasions.
Okay.
So I can demonstrate, and what is the best step is to do is cover it up with the damp towel so the phyllo dough doesn't dry out and then will crack. Okay. So if it's soft and moist, you can work with it better. And you take 2 sheets at a time. You spray it with the clarified butter. It's already in there and shows you how to clarify the butter. Mm-hmm. And spray the 2 sheets, turn it over, spray it again with butter, warm butter. You need it to be warm. And I have pistachio here. I had grind already, mix it with sugar and rose water and butter so it can stick to the thing. And you make sure you put it on straight and line. Make it even. And now I'm going to turn it over gently. You work with this gently because phyllo dough is very, very sensitive. It breaks very easy. And now when you're done, you gather it together, push it together. And if it's not stuck, you need to oil it. And then, there we go. Then you butter it.
Okay.
Again, the top, so you want the phyllo to stay nice and crispy. And then you bake it for over 25 minutes, depending on your oven, and that's how it comes out.
Very nice. Yeah, and you delivered some of it to us, so this is also another way that it turns out if you have the shot of this. But yeah, you are able to chop it up into some smaller pieces, and turns out really nice.
You can have a piece and taste it. Let us know how you like it.
Absolutely, will do. Let me just pull one of these pieces out of here.
Yeah.
Here we go. Yeah. So this is exactly the recipe that Amira just cooked for you on the screen there, and it is this is in A Wafi, correct?
Yes.
It is in.
Yes. It's in there. Yes.
That is fantastic. That's great. That is really tasty. Yeah, that's an excellent recipe.
Thank you. Enjoy. A Wafi, as we say. A Wafi means enjoy.
Okay.
And health. Yes.
So that makes even more sense for that title then. We're joined by Amira Daboul. She's a cook and author of A Wafi from Amira's Kitchen. And again, just tell us again some of the places, at least locally or online, where this is available.
Babylon on Maple and Orchard Lake, Ashtar 14 Mile in Haggerty, and CK in Sterling Heights. Middle Eastern Arabic store.
Yeah, various stores around the local area where you're going to be able to get Wafi from Amira's Kitchen and learn some of these some of these great recipes that have been passed down through generations of Amira's family and other Chaldean families in the local area. It makes a great holiday gift for people, and it'd be really interesting as you get together with your family and run through some of your traditions for the holidays, to also be able to explore some other traditions from other communities in our local area as well, such as the Chaldean community. That has a lot of these great traditions and recipes as well. We're joined by Amira Daboul, the cook and author of Awafi from Amira's Kitchen, a Chaldean cookbook. And so is this your first cookbook, Amira? Is this your first kind of venture like this, or have you done things like this before with Amira's Kitchen?
Yes, this is my first book.
So then Amira's Kitchen, is this also a new venture for you? Is this a new project of yours, or has Amira's Kitchen been something that has that been a business or an idea that you have been working on for a while now, and this is just the first time you've run into something like a cookbook as opposed to making these dishes and providing them to other people?
This is my first time making the cookbook, and I got just interested in it all of a sudden out of nowhere. My kids wanted the recipe, and I start writing them down, and from there I start, let me make you a book, guys. And then from the small book turned out to be a big book. So I get into it really, and I enjoy doing it.
And so how long has this cookbook been available? And if it's already been out for purchase for a while or available for purchase for a while, what's been the response?
Very good. I've been having really good response, and people are very, very happy with it. They've given me very nice feedbacks, how easy it is to follow, to read the recipe, to understand step by step in there, and the pictures I have in there for every step. There's pictures available, there's step by step, and the reading, it's really nice. The way it's written, very simple and easy to follow. They're very happy with it.
We're joined by Amira Daboul. She is the author of Awafi from Amira's Kitchen, a Chaldean cookbook. You can learn more by visiting amiraskitchen.com, or you can also learn about this cookbook and then find it in a number of different places all throughout the local area. Amira, anything else that people should know about Awafi or anything else from Amira's Kitchen at this time before we let you go today?
It's a really good book. It's good to have it in your home. It's not just a book. It's more a history to me book, because I capture the history of my village where I came from. And it's nice to have it to pass on to your kids and grandkids. I really recommend people getting it to have it in their house. Even non-Chaldean people, there's nice recipes and easy to follow. They're very easy to do and very nice traditions we have in there. It's good to share with everybody. And I'm happy to be able to share it.
Yeah, we're happy to have had you on to share it with us. Again, it is Awafi. It is from Amira's Kitchen. You can learn more at amiraskitchen.com. You can also order Awafi on amiraskitchen.com, $45 for the cookbook, and you can get an Awafi apron as well for $10 at amiraskitchen.com. Amira, thank you for joining us today.
Thank you. Thank you for having me.
Appreciate it. We're going to take a quick break. On the other side, it is Alzheimer's Awareness Month, and we'll be joined by a local neurologist, Dr. Andrea Stoner from the Michigan Institute of Neurological Disorders, coming up next to talk about Alzheimer's, some of the signs and symptoms that you can be aware of, the treatments, and more about this very common neurological disease. That is coming up next. You're watching and listening to the Megacast.
We may come from different organizations,
but we work together to protect the Huron River for everyone.
Most of the pollution that goes into our rivers is carried by rainwater that flows off of roads, parking lots, and rooftops.
The leaves and bark of a single tree can retain a surprising amount of rainwater. Depending on its size and species, it could be 100 gallons or more.
It is estimated that an urban forest can reduce annual runoff by up to 7%.
Here's one thing that we know can help keep our water clean.
Plant a tree.
Plant a tree.
Plant a tree.
There's one water, and it's ours to protect.
One of the things you can look for in your friends is a change in behavior.
These can be big changes, they can be small changes in mood, physical appearance.
They may be sleeping less or sleeping more, drinking more, or their eating patterns may be different.
One big change that can be pretty obvious is change in motivation. Do they no longer want to play basketball? Do they no longer want to play video games?
Now that we're spending more time online and in virtual settings, it's really important to pay attention to the language that your friend is using and the words they're using to communicate.
So when we text our friends, are they taking longer amounts of time to respond? Are they not responding at all? You don't have to be an expert to try to recognize these signs. The second that you feel it in your gut and that you're concerned, that's the second to have the conversation and open the door to what might be going on.
Whatever gets you talking.
Today, it is easier than ever to join Michigan's Organ Donor Registry and help build a bridge of hope for organ, tissue, and eye donation. Just one person can potentially save or help improve the lives of up to 75 people. By joining, your legacy could be the gift of life. Sign up today at michigan.gov/SOS or at any of the more than 145 Secretary of State self-service stations located across Michigan. Be part of Michigan's Bridge of Hope by adding your name to the Organ Donor Registry.
When times get dark, we can't see the help that's all around us. When you don't know where to turn, let 211 be your guiding light.
How can I help you?
Our guides are ready to connect you with the help you need. For help with food, healthcare, mental health, and other resources, call 211 or visit 211.org. 211. Get connected, get help.
How does marijuana affect the teen brain?
Our brains are still developing into our 20s.
With regular use, marijuana can affect teen brain development.
It can affect our brain's circuitry and blood flow and impair thinking, learning, and memory function,
which could hold us back from reaching our potential.
Don't let marijuana mess with your brain.
Get the facts at michigan.gov/drug-free.
Whether you're the city,
the county,
or the Huron River Watershed Council,
we work together to protect water resources for everyone.
Most of the pollution entering our rivers is carried by rainwater that runs off roads, parking lots, and rooftops.
A rain garden helps catch stormwater runoff.
Rain gardens and their plants help dirty runoff soak into the ground.
You can do your part to help keep our water clean.
Learn about rain gardens and native plants.
So consider a rain garden in your home landscaping.
Catch the runoff with a rain garden.
There's one water, and it's ours to protect.
Joining us now is Dr. Andrea Stoner. She's a board-certified neurologist at the Michigan Institute for Neurological Disorders to talk to us about Alzheimer's Awareness Month this November. Dr. Stoner, thanks for being with us.
Thank you for having me.
Appreciate having you on. So more than 6.2 million Americans are living with Alzheimer's disease at this time. People have their kind of very general knowledge of Alzheimer's disease. It's one of those neurological disorders that we are typically hearing a lot about in our general society, but people don't really have a full understanding of the scope of this disease and how it affects different people in many different ways. So tell us some of the different ways that Alzheimer's affects many of these 6.2 million Americans living with it each day.
Right. So Alzheimer's is a type of dementia. So it is the most common type of dementia, and it's really characterized by a slow progression of change. So, you know, we all know that the short-term memory is definitely first affected. And so most patients can say, oh yeah, I am frequently repeating conversations or asking the same questions over and over again. And family members are noticing that as well. So not only memory is affected, but as other parts of the cognitive domain. And that's, I think, something that we often forget about when we're discussing Alzheimer's, is that it can be very much behavioral changes and judgment changes that come along with the disease process that a lot of people aren't aware of.
We're joined by Dr. Amira Stoner, board-certified neurologist from the Michigan Institute of Neurological Disorders, or MIND, joining us on the Megacast to talk about November being Alzheimer's Awareness Month. And so, Dr. Stoner, you said it is a slow progression of symptoms with Alzheimer's disease. Generally speaking, when are people usually diagnosed, and when is this usually caught in a patient so they can begin treatment and being tracked to see these symptoms really progressing and know that this is Alzheimer's disease?
Right. So unless the family members have familiarity with a lot of the symptoms, sometimes the disease is not caught until later on. And that's why it's so important to spread awareness, because we want patients and family members to know what some of the early symptoms are. Like I said, it's a slow progression. So it's not something that you notice overnight. It's something that when you look back 3 months ago or 6 months ago, you could say, oh yes, mom or dad used to be able to carry on a conversation fairly well. And now I'm noticing that they're having hiccups in the conversation, or they're repeating the same stories that, I've already heard for the last several weeks. And this is something that, it takes families, 6 months to a year, sometimes longer, to really recognize those symptoms. And it's unfortunate when family members aren't in town and don't talk to the patients frequently, because a lot of these symptoms can go unnoticed for much longer.
And in terms of treatment, what are some of the typical treatments that Alzheimer's patients will undergo, and how effective are those treatments in either reducing the symptoms or slowing the severity of those symptoms over time?
Right. So we talk about both pharmacologic treatments for Alzheimer's and non-pharmacologic. And when we talk about medications or pharmacologic treatments, we focus on the disease process itself. And there are medicines out there that we know slow the progression down. So there's no cure for Alzheimer's. There's no way to fully stop it. But these medicines are approved, and they can slow down kind of, some of the memory changes or cognitive changes that we notice. The non-pharmacologic treatments focus on controlling symptoms. So, how can we make the patient and the family more comfortable with these changes that the patient is experiencing? And so, like I said, not only is memory affected, but sometimes behavior can become affected. And so patients need medicine sometimes, and different ways to cope with the behavioral changes, sometimes the aggression that comes with it, and the sleep disturbances that can be associated with it as well.
We're joined by Dr. Amira Stoner, a board-certified neurologist with the Michigan Institute for Neurological Disorders, joining us to talk about Alzheimer's Awareness Month on the Megacast. More than 6.2 million Americans currently living with Alzheimer's disease. And so in terms of the treatments that we just talked about, Dr. Stoner, what impacts those treatments and how they are, what impacts how those treatments are then utilized for one patient versus another? Does it differ based on the severity of the cases from one patient that may be maybe a little bit younger, maybe earlier on their diagnosis, versus someone that's a little bit further along in their diagnosis?
Absolutely. So it really is an individualized treatment, and there are medications for more mild to memory type changes or mild to memory cognitive dysfunction, and then there are medications for more moderate to severe. And the dosages also change. So we often start patients on lower doses, and then as the disease progresses, we increase the dose, maximize the medication before adding on a second agent.
I'm joined by Dr. Amira Stoner, board-certified neurologist with the Michigan Institute of Neurological Disorders. And in terms of who gets Alzheimer's disease, you say it's the most common form of dementia. So who are the groups of people or certain people that are most at risk for developing any form of dementia, but particularly Alzheimer's disease? Or are there other risk factors that may lead someone down the line in their life to then later be afflicted with Alzheimer's disease?
Absolutely. There are, just age, unfortunately, is a risk factor, which nobody can avoid or control. But we know that when we get above 65 years old, the risk significantly starts to increase. And we also know that there is a familial component. There are genetic factors that can predispose a patient to Alzheimer's. So that is something that we take into account when family members can tell us, oh yeah, my grandma, my great grandma, et cetera, they've all had it. There are other factors that play a role too. Unfortunately, lower educational status to start with, that can be a factor at developing Alzheimer's. And patients with Down syndrome, we know that if they live to be a certain age, there is a high likelihood that they will develop Alzheimer's.
So you mentioned that some of the risk factors include a lower education level. With that being said, are there preventative tactics that people can employ earlier on in life, or depending on or really at any age, to prevent any sort of onset of any dementia, but especially in particularly of Alzheimer's?
Yes, there are. We know that both physical and cognitive help can be beneficial. And so when we talk about physical activity, we usually try to say, get at least two days per week of moderate activity, and that's something where you're exercising for about 30 minutes at a time and increasing your heart rate. Obviously, we promote safe exercise. So for patients with Alzheimer's, a lot of them are fall risk, and so we want them to do exercises that are not going to increase their risk of falling, like being on a treadmill or something like that. We also focus on cognitive health, meaning we want patients to stay social. We want patients to stay out in the world and kind of, be in the setting where they're getting stimulated frequently. It's the patients who kind of are very introverted and stay at home, don't talk to anyone, don't communicate with anyone, that can be more negatively impacted. We do recommend that if you're not a social person, that's okay. You don't have to suddenly go out into the mall or public places. But if you're not social, then just try to focus on doing more things at home that can be stimulating for the mind, like puzzles, Sudoku, crossword puzzles. Those have been shown to be beneficial. Other things like reading, and especially reading things that are educational. You can sit down and read a novel, or you can sit down and watch a sitcom. That's not really stimulating for the mind. We really want people to be kind of actively thinking about what's going on. So reading the news, watching the news, kind of staying up to date with current events can be very helpful, not only for cognitive health, but also just to stay kind of basically involved with the day, the date, the month, the season. Those are things that patients often lose, and that's if they're actively participating in society or watching the news, they can hold on to that a little bit longer.
We're joined by Dr. Andrea Stoner, board-certified neurologist at the Michigan Institute for Neurological Disorders. And Dr. Stoner, if someone is out there and they are seeing some oddities with with a family member, with a friend, with someone in your life, they're noticing something's different or off with themselves, what are some of those common symptoms that they should be looking for that should onset them to either suggest for a family member, a loved one, another friend, whatever the case may be, or prompt them themselves to go seek the guidance of a neurologist or another expert and begin a testing process for Alzheimer's or another form of dementia?
Yeah, so obviously the short-term memory is something that we see frequently, or most commonly, and so when family members are noticing that is becoming more of an issue, it's not like you or I, we walk into a room, we forget what we were doing, we walk out, and oh my goodness, what just happened? Do I have Alzheimer's? It's not that fast. It's not that quick. This is something that is happening kind of on a daily basis, and maybe starting to negatively impact your life, meaning if you misplace the keys and then you miss an appointment because of that, things like that are starting to interfere with your daily functioning. Outside of memory, other things to kind of be aware of or to look out for are changes in something that we call executive functioning. And executive functioning is kind of our ability to judge and reason, and also to be a little bit inhibited. So I know most of us can say we've all had the story of, Thanksgiving dinner and grandma saying something a little bit inappropriate. And that is potentially a sign that we should look out for. So if your mother was very, conservative, and now she's becoming a little bit more, scandalous, that change in behavior is noteworthy. Another common symptoms that patients really do struggle with is not only a depression, but then a becoming apathetic. And that means that they just kind of stop caring. And so the patients themselves would become introverted, more quiet, and sometimes depressed. And so if you're noticing that with a family member, that's where you definitely want to bring them in for an evaluation.
Then Dr. Stoner, around what age should people be looking out for some of these symptoms that may more commonly be pointing to something like Alzheimer's disease?
Yeah, usually 65 and older is when we start seeing first symptoms. And that's, that increases with age. So the older we get, if you're 75, you got to look out for that a little bit more. And then 85, same thing. Not every 85-year-old is going to have Alzheimer's, but there is a higher likelihood that you will develop it the longer that you're living.
Dr. Stoner, anything else that would be important for people to know at this time about Alzheimer's or other forms of dementia or neurological diseases that they should be keeping aware of at this time, as we are in November, of course, Alzheimer's Awareness Month?
Yeah, I want, patients and families to know that there are options for treatment. And so, if you have even a question of symptoms or a question of the disease itself, that we are, as neurologists and even primary doctors, can help answer those questions and then get you on the path for different treatments. And not, like I said, not all treatments are medications. Some of them are just more supportive therapy. And we have avenues to support family members as well, because as we know, the caregivers and close family members are hit just as hard as the patients are. So that's just to know that there's help available for them.
Dr. Stoner, thank you so much for your time.
Thank you very much.
I couldn't breathe at all. There was lots of talk about putting me on a ventilator. I thought I was gonna die. I was 39 weeks pregnant and had a scheduled C-section. During that time, I got COVID and was hospitalized for a month. I had a blood clot in my lungs. It caused me to go into right-sided heart failure. I was really scared. I kept texting my husband and my mom, telling them how scared I was, and I was worried that he was gonna grow up without a mom. And then I was worried if, when I did get home, that he wouldn't know who I was. Being 27 and a mom and a wife and having that all almost taken away from me. It's scary. And if a vaccine can prevent that from happening, why not? Get your vaccine. I don't want this to happen to anybody else.
A message from the staff of Michigan's Crime Victim Compensation Program.
Anyone can be a victim of crime
and suffer lasting trauma, physically, emotionally, and financially.
But you are not alone.
If you're struggling financially due to a crime,
we're here
for you.
Find out if you qualify for crime victim compensation.
Call 877-251-7373 or visit michigan.gov/crime-victim.
A message from the Michigan Department of Health and Human Services, Division of Victim Services.
You see certain things get reincarnated in your children. My daughter is very much inspired by my wife's artistic pursuits. So my daughter started making necklaces. She makes what we call affirmation fashion. I tell her every day that your black is beautiful. Your black is beautiful. Your black is beautiful. And if there's anything better than being beautiful, it's being smart. And if there's anything better than being smart, it's being kind. And reaffirming that every day is our method of making sure her chin never drops. My dad wasn't around, and I remember riding a bike and falling off and cutting myself, and me never just wanting to get back on it. People ask, how your children learn how to ride a bike, and you did. I didn't teach them. I just created an environment where they taught themselves, and all I had to do was be there.
Whether you're the city,
the county,
or the Huron River Watershed Council.
As partners working together to protect our water resources, we agree.
Pet waste is the source of harmful bacteria in the Huron River.
When it's left on the ground, it can wash into the storm drains.
These lead directly to our streams. No filters, no treatment.
Here's one thing we know that can help keep our water clean.
Pick up pet waste and trash it.
Pick up pet waste and trash it.
So pick up pet waste and trash it.
There's one water, and it's ours to protect.
Who is struggling right now?
I am.
My son is.
Many are struggling with anxiety, depression, and substance use. Before it becomes a crisis, reach out to MyCal, the Michigan Crisis and Access Line for free confidential support 24/7. Available in the Upper Peninsula and Oakland County. Just call or text 1-844-44-MyCal or chat online at michigan.gov/MyCal. A message from the Michigan Department of Health and Human Services.
I couldn't breathe at all. There was lots of talk about putting me on a ventilator. I thought I was gonna die. I was 39 weeks pregnant and had a scheduled C-section. During that time, I got COVID and was hospitalized for a month. I had a blood clot in my lungs. It caused me to go into right-sided heart failure. I was really scared. I kept texting my husband and my mom, telling them how scared I was, and I was worried that he was gonna grow up without a mom. And then I was worried if, when I did get home, that he wouldn't know who I was. You know, being 27 and a mom and a wife and having that all almost taken away from me. It's scary, and if a vaccine can prevent that from happening, why not? Get your vaccine. I don't want this to happen to anybody else.
Welcome back to the Megacast. I'm Tyler Kieft alongside our studio producer and board operator Calvin Brown in our studios in West Bloomfield Township, although we're broadcasting all throughout the state of Michigan in a number of different community, television, radio, and other media outlets in Oakland County and all around the Great Lakes State. Learn more information on our website at civiccentertv.com/Megacast, where you can learn more about each and every one of our partnering stations, including our radio homes for the Megacast, 89.3 WBLD Orchard Lake and 88.1 WBFH Bloomfield Hills. Joining us now is Chuck Christian. He is a former University of Michigan tight end and a survivor of the abuse of Dr. Robert Anderson, a former University of Michigan athletics department doctor. Chuck, thank you for being with us today.
Thank you for having me.
Appreciate having you on. So, Chuck, you were the first former U of M athlete to publicly come out and report the abuse that you suffered from Dr. Robert Anderson. Since well over 200 people and counting have, through the University of Michigan's hotline, reported their own cases of abuse from Dr. Robert Anderson. And it's a tricky spot. I want to be sensitive to this because this is obviously a significant trauma in your life and in the lives of the other victims of Dr. Anderson and other victims of abuse. But I do want to get some insight from you to start off and ask, what did bring you to finally speak up and to have the courage to speak up about what Dr. Anderson had done to you, and presumably at that time, as you're reporting that, if they had done it to you, maybe he had done it to other athletes as well.
Well, first, to make one little correction, there are over 2,100 right now.
Sorry, yeah, 2,100. I lost a zero in there.
It happens. Yeah. Well, what happened for me was, at the time, I was in the hospital, and I was in the hospital dealing with cancer, because I had prostate cancer, which spread all the way to my spine, tailbones, ribs, everything. So I had about 12 areas in my body that had cancer. And at the time, the doctors were giving me, when I was first diagnosed, the doctors was giving me just 3 years to live. And this past, when I first spoke out, I had already outlived what they said. So I said, what have I got to lose? And a friend of mine called me up in the hospital, and he said, Chuck, you remember those physicals that Anderson gave us? I said, yeah. He said, well, I just want you to know that it was illegal what he was doing to us. I said, what? He said, yeah, he was raping us, and we didn't even know it. So so that's how I found out about it. And then when I spoke with an attorney about it, and he heard my story, he asked me, he said, would you be willing to speak with ESPN? And I said, sure. So I spoke with ESPN, and they said that they wanted to do my story, but they couldn't fly anybody out because of COVID. So I was in the hospital. I was in so much pain, and to be honest, I didn't know if I would be alive in 2 weeks. So I called the writer, and I said, listen, if you don't get this thing done right away, I cannot guarantee you that I'll be here. And I'm not going to say this to my wife, but I'm saying it to you. You better get this thing done ASAP. So he did.
We're joined by Chuck Christian. He is a former University of Michigan football tight end and a survivor of the abuse of Dr. Robert Anderson, a former team doctor at the University of Michigan. And of course, as you had corrected me, over 2,000 people since have reported similar or varying abuse from Dr. Robert Anderson. And as depositions have been had, as more people's stories have been heard, you have said personally that you never did speak to any of your coaches about it, and that from as far as you knew, Bo Schembechler, the head coach, legendary head coach of the University of Michigan football team, from at least from your knowledge, did not know about this abuse. Others on the team who have reported these crimes have said that that they had mentioned it to Bo, or that it may have passed through Bo's desk. Do you still believe that Bo did not know about this, or that there wasn't really any involvement in any sort of cover-up or whatever you want to call it for these crimes committed by Dr. Anderson by the football team's coaches or other team coaches in athletics at the University of Michigan?
Well, at first, I did not believe he knew. I had to force myself to believe that Bo would not have let this happen to us. And even when there were all kinds of question marks flying around, I still forced myself to believe that he didn't know. And at the time of my deposition, I forced myself to believe that he didn't know. But Michigan paid, $5 million for the Wilmer Hale report. And when they did the report, it came back that Bo knew. And not only that Bo knew, but the athletic director knew, and 24 other administrators knew as well. So when I just, pulled my head out of La La Land, I said, hey, this guy knew. And then I'd start doing the math, because you got to realize the football team has 120 players. And this man rapes your entire team, not for just 1 year, but for 37 years. There's no way that Bo was that dumb that he would let this happen without his knowledge. So yes, I really, honestly, truthfully believe that Bo knew, but he just did not protect us.
And thousands of people now at this point, over 2,000 people have come out and had their stories heard, or at least reported their stories to the university through the hotline that is associated with this tragedy and this scandal through the abuse of Dr. Anderson at the University of Michigan. And so we've seen similar cases at other universities here in Michigan and across the U.S., unfortunately, as well. And there have been varying responses from these institutions to the news of this information, how they've responded, how they have then interacted with the survivors, with the victims of these heinous crimes that have been committed, sometimes in the case of Dr. Anderson, over a number of years. In your opinion at this time, and if you can speak on this, what is your opinion on the response that's been had and the interaction that's been had between the University of Michigan and the survivors of Dr. Anderson? Has it been appropriate? Has it been enough enough do you believe that they have taken this seriously enough and really taken this to heart and try to, as much as it's possible in this scenario, make right of the situation?
No, absolutely not. When in the public eye, Michigan says, oh, you guys are so brave for speaking out, and we're so sorry for what Anderson did to you guys, and we just wish you guys the best, and, you know, stay strong and all this. Well, in private, it's a whole different story, because when I had my deposition, it was anything but pleasant. I mean, the lawyer, the Michigan lawyer, attacked me for like 6.5 hours. I mean, he was brutal. He treated me like I was a criminal. And he screamed and yelled at me. I must have broken down crying at least 15 times. That's what you don't see when you read the report. When you read my deposition, you don't get the emotion of it, of the whole thing. But when you get to see the video, you see what a butthole the Michigan lawyers were toward me, and they just attacked me nonstop. So no, they have not. There's one face for the public, and then there's another face when it comes to the victims, and they have not been respectful or kind or anything in private. It's just been a public thing that they do, and even so much so that when we tried to speak at the Board of Regents back in September 23rd, guys had to sue to be able to speak, and I drove 15 hours from Boston to Michigan to be able to speak at that event, and they said I couldn't speak. And I said, you know, listen, I have stage 4 cancer, bone cancer, and I'm dying. I drove 15 hours. I need to speak. She said, no, you cannot speak. I said, why? She said, because you had to sign up online first. I said, are you kidding me? How am I going to sign up online when I don't even know you got to sign up online? And plus, I found out that 5 other players who did speak, they had to sue for the right to speak. That's not right.
And we're joined by Chuck Christian, a former University of Michigan tight end on their football team, and the first to speak out on the abuse by Dr. Robert Anderson, a former University of Michigan Athletics Department doctor who has, as of now, the reported abuse, over 2,000 former athletes reporting they were abused by Dr. Anderson. And this abuse, and hearing these stories is important, because this abuse isn't just the immediate trauma or the everlasting psychological trauma. It has a snowballing effect as well on your health as well, and you've told your story multiple times to other publications that it had impacted your interactions with doctors, and ultimately, especially with your cancer diagnosis, put your life ultimately in grave danger. Correct?
Right. And at this point, you know, the doctors have given me. Initially, they gave me 3 years to live because I wouldn't go see a urologist about this case. You know, if I went, my wife would set me up with appointments to see somebody for my blood pressure. Sometimes I go, sometimes I wouldn't. But whenever it came to anything having to do with accessing my behind, I would always say no, because of what Anderson had done to me. And so that's what was happening with me. I just couldn't go to a doctor that was going to do anything like that to me, and because it was a traumatic experience.
Yeah, and it's, if it happened to you, if that scenario happened to you, there's a high chance that it happened to one or many of the other 2,000 and counting, and that's just the ones that have reported this abuse or have come forward with their stories of this abuse. It does not include others that still to this day are too traumatized to even come forth with their story, or do not want that story, their story, to be out there, because trauma, this is a trauma, and it affects people in so many different ways. And as you said, the university, in your opinion and in the general opinion of the victims, has not done enough. Actually, your attorney had been quoted in an article saying, quote, "When Michigan has the chance to side with its athletes, they always choose to protect the institution. In this scenario, with the discussions that have been had between the victims and the university, with the depositions, with the opportunities or non-opportunities as they've been described to speak with the Board of Regents, what does the university need to do in terms of their communication, in terms of the ways that they are interacting with the victims of these crimes that happened on their watch, that happened on their campus, that happened in their campus buildings with their school employees? What do they need to do to right the ship with with the victims of abuse, or at least to open proper lines of communication with the victims of abuse and treat them the way that they deserve to be treated in this situation?
First of all, they need to stop trying to deny that these things happen and stop trying to deny that people knew, because people knew. And as long as they're saying, oh, nobody knew, Bo didn't know, and all that stuff, it's like, you can't tell me that Bo didn't know, because Bo knew everything. And that's one thing he would tell us when we were playing. He's like, I know everything. I know everything that goes on campus. Whenever somebody got drunk, Bo knew. When somebody got kicked out of a class, Bo knew. If you failed a test, Bo knew. You got into a fight, Bo knew everything. So there's no way that Bo didn't know this. But that's the beginning of it. Just stop denying it. Stop denying that people knew. I was at the campsite the other day in front of Schlitzel's house, and a med student who's now a doctor, she came up to me. She said, Chuck, when you were playing football, I was in med school, and we all knew, the students all knew, that you guys were getting raped by Dr. Anderson. I said, how did you know? And she said, because he was raping us too.
Wow. Well, it's absolutely disgusting. It continues to be more disgusting. We've seen this at other universities in different cases, of course, most notably before the Dr. Anderson case at the University of Michigan is the Larry Nassar case on the campus of Michigan State University. So many parallels between these two, and yet none of these institutions seem to have learned their lesson that when these scandals come forth, they need to do everything that they can for the victims of these crimes, for those that have been traumatized by them. And then more importantly than that, to figure out what they need to do to then prevent this going forward. And in your opinion, knowing what the University of Michigan knows now, with the communication that they have had with the victims of these crimes from Dr. Anderson and the alleged but pretty clear cover-up, or at least lack of reporting at the absolute least, from within the athletics department and other departments and medical institutions at the University of Michigan. Do you believe, or at least in your opinion, because I'm not going to have you speak for the collective of those traumatized by Dr. Anderson, do you believe that the University of Michigan has set itself on the right path to correct this issue and prevent this issue from being something that could come up again on their campus in the future?
No, I don't. I hear a lot of chatter at the end of the meetings. At the end of the Board of Regents meetings, they're saying, all the things that we're doing now to make it a better, safer campus and blah, 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 blah. But that's just all BS. That's just lawyer talk, and it's not real. It's not legit. I spoke with a lot of students, because when we first moved in front of Schlitzel's house, it was just John Vaughn and myself, and we were there, and then we were there to explain to the students what had happened to us. And when we got there and began to speak with the students, it's like, wow, John, this hasn't changed. It's still a rape culture. It's still a protect Michigan culture. And that's exactly what's still going on today. There were students that came up to us and said, listen, since you guys have been here, this is the safest I've ever felt since I've been here at University of Michigan. I said, really? And she wasn't the only one. That we had at least a half a dozen came by the tent site to let us know that us being there has made a difference to them, and they feel safer. And one girl got up and told the story of how she was raped on campus, and how it took about 7 months for her to go through all of the channels to press charges against this young fella, and but Michigan is really making it difficult for people to press charges, making it difficult for people to tell when they've been sexually assaulted, and it's just a shame, and it hasn't changed. So it's still protecting the big M. They don't really care about the victims. They care about the big M and bringing all that money in, and that's what it boils down to, in my opinion.
We're joined by Chuck Christian, former University of Michigan football athlete and the first to report the abuse that he suffered at the hands of Dr. Robert Anderson, former team doctor at the University of Michigan in their athletics department. Chuck, just another couple of minutes with you before we'll say goodbye today. I want to give you as much time as you would like. Anything else that you would like to say today that we haven't spoken on, or anything else that you would like to speak on today?
I think for me, if as long as Michigan is playing this game and not dealing with the problem, it's gonna be a part of Michigan's present and future. But if they were to just realize, listen, we did this happened, we want to make it right and just get it done, then it becomes a part of Michigan's past. And it seemed like they don't know this. This could have been a part of the past 6-7 months ago, but they chose not to. They chose to just keep dragging it out and sweeping it under the rug, to keep dragging it along and sweeping under the rug, and that's not gonna settle anything. And what's gonna happen is more stuff is gonna come out. Because just think about, I did my deposition over a year ago. So much has come out in that year's time that I didn't know about at the time when I did my deposition. Now it's like, wow, if I were to do a deposition today, it would be a totally different story, because I've learned a lot more. So I think that Michigan really should just, do the right thing by the victims, do the right thing and put this, because honestly, the Michigan lawyers they're not looking out for the best interests of Michigan. They didn't go here. They don't care. They're racking up bills every single day and every week in the millions. And why would they rush this thing? So they're just dragging it out as long as they can. And then when they can't drag it out any longer, then they're going to go ahead and settle. But Michigan should see this. They should realize what the lawyers are doing. And that's what's happening. And we just wanted, we just want this to be behind us now, because, I'm 62 years old. I was in hospice, this time last year. I was supposed to have been dead. And, but I'm still here, and I'm going to keep on fighting, because, I'm going to fight until this thing is done. So they really should take care of the former players and do the right thing and stop playing these games. Put this behind you. Michigan should put this behind them. And that's what it should be, a part of the past. And then you can move on. Because I feel like the Michigan football program will never reach the glory that it once had until this thing gets resolved properly. It's going to keep on. Michigan's going to lose at the end of the game because of some play or one call or something like that. But that's going to keep on happening, I feel, until Michigan does the right thing.
Chuck, we appreciate it. Thank you for telling us more about your story, for giving us the perspective of those that had been abused by Dr. Anderson, by the victims of these heinous crimes, and for speaking your mind and your heart today. We appreciate it.
I make one more statement. You got
Absolutely.
I've heard a lot of people say this is just a big money grab. Why wouldn't they say anything back in 30, 40, 50 years ago? Well, actually, we didn't know 30, 40, 50 years ago that we had been raped. We just found out. That's why we waited so long. If we had known then, we would have spoken out then. But we thought it was a legitimate physical that we were going through. This is not a money grab. This is Michigan not doing the right thing and protecting sexual predators.
Chuck, we appreciate your time. Thank you for joining us today.
Take care now.
You as well. We're going to take a quick break. On the other side, we're going to be joined by JVS Human Services Financial Capability Supervisor Lalthsa Cunningham. And then we'll cap off the show at 11:40 with members of the Oakland University Theater Department who will be performing the 25th annual Putnam County Spelling Bee coming up soon. That is all coming up next. You're watching and listening to the Megacast.
Motorcyclists are hard to see. To keep everyone safer, it's important to always look for them and know where most crashes occur. 84% of motorcycle and vehicle crashes happen on streets, not highways. And most crashes with motorcyclists occur when vehicle drivers are turning left. So before turning, especially to the left, make sure you look for motorcyclists. Then look again. It could save a life.
To Sophia and Gabriel. Even though these old knees can't follow on your adventure to the forest today, these flowers represent my love. These stitches and threads join us together. And wherever you see a flower, a bird, a beautiful tree, know that my love is with you.
Make the forest part of your story at a park near you. Find one at discovertheforest.org.
72.7% of high school students get less than the recommended 7 to 9 hours of sleep a night. This can cause pain, obesity, and can very negatively affect your mental health. When you have a consistent 7 to 9 hours of sleep every day, you get sick less often, lose more weight, and have better relationships with those around you. For more information about the dangers of sleep deprivation, go to sleepfoundation.org. This message is brought to you by the WBHS Digital Media Arts Program and 89.3 Lalthsa FM.
Can I ask you a question?
Why did you get your kids vaccinated?
It was hard for them to social distance, to be isolated from their friends.
I want them to get back to school and sports games. So as a pediatrician, I recommend the vaccine to everyone I know.
The boys lost a former teammate and classmate who was only 20 years old. It's been a devastating year.
We want to get back to normalcy. Our daughter is really looking forward to being with her friends, being a kid.
It's the Great Lakes water. And so what people do ends up in our waterways.
Flushable wipes are just evil. They should be thrown away. They're impossible to destroy, and they can cause significant problems.
One of the main things when you're cooking is to not dump fats, oils, and greases down your drains.
They stick to the sides of pipes. They stick to everything they come in contact with. Don't put it down the sink.
There's one water, and it's ours to protect.
Welcome back to the Megacast. I'm Tyler Keefe alongside Calvin Brown, our studio producer and board operator, with me every day here in our studios in West Bloomfield Township, where we broadcast live from 10 a.m. to 12 noon. We're also live to tape and on demand in a number of different places all throughout the state of Michigan and on our website at civiccentertv.com. Just click on our Megacast link or type in civiccentertv.com/Megacast. Joining us now is Lalthsa Cunningham. She is the Financial Capability Supervisor at JVS Human Services, talking to us about one of the free interactive webinars for Metro Detroiters coming up this Friday at noon called Financial Gratitude While Budgeting for the Holidays. Lalthsa, thanks for being with us today.
Tyler, thank you so much. And I want to say thank you again for having us. This is our second time here, and we definitely appreciate the support.
Absolutely. And you do great work over there at JVS Human Services, providing insight into a lot of life skills that either people never do develop because they're not taught them in school, or they don't learn them from their families growing up, or because things change in our society and it's tough to keep up with all these things in so many different directions. And so these services that you provide at JVS, especially webinars like this, these free webinars, really helpful to a lot of people, especially in the year that we're in right now, coming off of the pandemic, the thick of the pandemic in 2020, still in the middle of things in 2021. Some similar wrinkles, some different ones. It's still a really tough time financially for a lot of people, and the holidays don't help that in most cases either. So here you have the Financial Gratitude While Budgeting for the Holidays seminar coming up. It's this Friday, November 12th at noon. What are some of the things that people can learn or should expect to be able to learn about budgeting for the holidays in this seminar on Friday?
They're going to learn a lot of things. First, we also want to focus on really celebrating small wins. A lot of our participants have really gone through a tough time, as you stated, with the pandemic that we were in last year, and that is still continuing to this day. And it's really been tough on a lot of families and their budgets as well. And so, again, we're going to talk to them about celebrating some of the small wins that they've been able to accomplish during this time. But also, we want to help them focus on really staying in budget as the holiday season approaches. Once Halloween is over and done, we really start to see families begin to spend a lot of money as they wrap up the year, obviously with Thanksgiving celebration, and then we move into Hanukkah and Christmas and Kwanzaa and things of those natures. And so that really takes an impact on their budget. So what we want to do this time, again, first show them that they should be, thankful for their small wins, but also help them create new small wins as well by managing their money, learning how to create that budget and really stick to it. And so we're going to give them some tools and tips on really, creating those lists for your grocery shopping. And again, just learning how to stay within the budget that they have set for the holidays. And many families probably have not set a budget, so we're asking them to do that as well.
And in terms of setting that budget for the holidays, what does your team, what sort of suggestions or tips and tricks, and without giving it all away, because you want people to, of course, to get all those details in this seminar, just on a basic level, what are some of those pieces of advice that you give to people, or you give to families, especially those that are on a tighter budget, so that they can still have the holiday season that they're looking for, and provide those gifts and those signs of love and other signs of appreciation that are typical during the holidays, while also not breaking the bank in the process?
Exactly. Well, I like that you talked about signs of love, because I think that's one thing that families need to do, especially when they feel like their finances are a little bit, low for the season, as it relates to spending. Learn how to give those gifts of love, but also to make a plan. I think one of the biggest things that families fail to do during this time is to actually have a plan on how much they want to spend, who they want to purchase things for during this time, and really focus on doing that first. Again, having that plan set in place.
We're joined by Lalthsa Cunningham. She's the Financial Capability Supervisor with JVS Human Services. Their free interactive webinar coming up this Friday, 12 noon, called Financial Gratitude While Budgeting for the Holidays. And so during the holiday season, a lot of people, in order to not break their budget, to continue to have the funds they need to pay their bills, may try to delay some of the payments on gifts or on food or on other items or things that they may be picking up for the holiday season specifically, and they may use their credit cards instead. What's some of the advice that JVS gives to families that may take that kind of a strategy, so that they don't go overboard with that and end up with a massive credit card debt as a result of the holiday season?
Yes, credit card debt is really, really huge during this time. So what we're asking to do is really try to focus on paying for things with cash, as opposed to using your credit cards. And we all know that if those balances aren't paid off within 30 days, you will incur interest. And so that means you spent more on the actual gifts that you purchased. So again, we want them to focus on trying to pay for things with cash. But again, going back to making that list and setting a budget. I know a lot of times when we're out shopping, we plan to, buy one thing for a particular family member or friend, and then we end up buying additional items. So really, if you have a list and you make that budget out of how much you want to spend, focus on actually doing it. It gets really tough, when we're out shopping, you see a lot of things, and there's a little bit of impulsive buying, I guess, during this time, and we want them to refrain from that. But again, if we could give our advice to anyone out there who is wanting to make purchases on their credit cards during that time, we ask that they try to pay for everything with cash. But if you must use your credit card, really try to focus on getting that payment back to the creditor within 30 days, and that way you won't have that additional interest that comes along with it. And then again, just focus on really using it responsibly. If you, again, I don't want to be redundant here, but it really goes all into creating that budget, making that list, and sticking to those plans.
Yeah, and it's a strategy. Using a credit card can be a strategy, but it can get out of hand, just like using your checking account or paying with cash. It can very easily get out of hand, and it affects you in a lot of other ways beyond not having the sufficient funds that you need to make ends meet when the bill does ultimately come due. It also can affect other things like your credit score and your ability to get loans and your ability to, if you're looking for to change your housing situation, that can also be a huge impact from going into that kind of debt because of your holiday purchases.
Absolutely. And we want them to really think about, when you purchase gifts for, your friends and your families and your loved ones during this time, we want them to really try to, whatever you pay for, or shall I say buy during this time, to have it paid for this year, and not take this 2021 debt over into 2022. A lot of families have a lot of debt that usually trickles over into the next year. We really want them to focus on getting it taken care of before you go into the new year and start the new year off fresh and without a lot of the old debt.
We're joined by Lalthsa Cunningham. She is the Financial Capability Supervisor at JVS Human Services. Again, they have a financial gratitude while budgeting for the holidays, in a free interactive webinar. That is coming up on Friday, November 12th. That is this week, Friday at 12 noon. You can learn more and register for the event at jvshumanservices.org or by sending an email to financialhelp@jvshumanservices.org. Again, that is financialhelp@jvshumanservices.org. And so in terms of the COVID-19 pandemic, obviously has had a huge impact on people's finances across the board in a number of different ways, whether it be because of job loss or because of job change. Budgeting has of course had to change as people's work situations and family situations and other financial situations have been modified as a result of the pandemic. What are some of the ways that it's affected how families are able to try and invest in the future as opposed to just getting by day to day? And then on top of that, impacting, of course, then the holiday situation as well.
And most families are really, Tyler, they're really at that point where a lot of them are really just budgeting and living, unfortunately, paycheck to paycheck. But what we really, want to hone into our participants is, again, reviewing that budget. If you're not making one, first to start it, but if you are making one, to review it on a regular basis so you can see where you can make those cuts at. It's really tough for families, but think about everything that's coming out of your banking account, thinking about spending unnecessary spending, things that you probably could have waited for. We really want them to focus on all of their needs versus their wants. There will be a time where you will be able to get your wants, but when you're having, issues, and you're living, paycheck to paycheck for some of the families, again, it's that time you want to go into your emergency budget mode and just really focus on all of the needs versus the wants. The holidays are here. There is a lot of things that we can do besides gift. We can, give gifts of service. It's one thing that we recommend to some of our participants if their funds aren't there, but we really don't recommend them buying things when it's not in the budget. And again, if there are things that you must purchase for, friends and families and loved ones, maybe reduce that amount of what you would normally spend on them.
We're joined by Lalthsa Cunningham, the Financial Capability Supervisor at JVS Human Services. You can register for their free interactive financial gratitude while budgeting for the holiday seminar. That is coming up on this Friday, November 12th at 12 noon. Again, that is a free seminar. You can register in a couple of different ways. financialhelp@jvshumanservices.org or just by visiting their website and learning more about the event at jvshumanservices.org. So, Lalthsa, I would assume that you're going to be part of this free interactive webinar. There are going to be other people, other experts that people will be able to pick the brains of, and who may some of those be?
My staff and I have a staff of 3 amazing counselors who love to teach, participants about money, and so they will be alongside with me. And we all bring a little bit, different to the meeting, so they'll get a variety of, information from all of us. But I also wanted to mention that we have another webinar coming up December 10th. It's called I Spent Too Much Money, Now What? And so that'll give you some tips because, there are some families, unfortunately, that will still overspend. And so we wanted to have a webinar for them as well, just to, once you have figured out that you've overspent, some tips that we'll have for you in order to move forward with, getting back on track, getting back within that budget. And, again, it's our goal here to really help families during this time, not only just to manage their money for, this holiday season, but, long term. It's really important that families go to using a budget if they're not using a budget, because, again, it helps you learn how to manage your money, to be able to make your payments on time, and even be able to save. And so those are things that are really important as we go forward into the new year.
Lalthsa, just another couple of minutes with you before we'll say goodbye today. Anything else that would be important for our audience to consider going into the holiday seasons financially, or anything else you'd like to talk about in terms of the free interactive webinar that's coming up this Friday at noon?
I just encourage, the audience to go to JVSHumanServices.org. We have many programs that will really help assist them during this time. All of our webinars are free, with the exception of our homeownership classes, which are done on a bi-monthly basis. But again, we offer group workshops. And then if there's participants out here that are interested in to have some individual counseling, we are open for that as well. We have those appointments available, and they're free as well. They're all complimentary. And so if you are in need of these services, don't hesitate to reach out, because this is information that, again, goes beyond the holiday season. It can really help you in the long term, and not only just you, but your family as well.
Well, Lalthsa, we appreciate your time. Thank you for previewing this free seminar. It's going to be a big help to a lot of people heading into the holiday season this Friday.
Thank you so much for having us again. We definitely appreciate it.
You as well. We're going to take a quick break. Before that, again, this seminar, Friday, November 12th, 12 noon, Financial Gratitude While Budgeting for the Holidays, is a free seminar through JVS Human Services. You can register by emailing financialhelp@jvshumanservices.org. Again, financialhelp@jvshumanservices.org, or learn more by going to their website, jvshumanservices.org. We're going to take one final break. On the other side, we'll be joined by three people from the Oakland University production of the 25th annual Putnam County Spelling Bee, which will include not only the an associate professor of theater and the director of the production, but also a couple of actors from the show as well, to preview it and talk about their upcoming shows this November. That's coming up next. You're watching and listening to the Megacast.
When times get dark, we can't see the help that's all around us. When you don't know where to turn, let 211 be your guiding light.
(211), how can I help you?
Our guides are ready to connect you with the help you need. For help with food, healthcare, mental health, and other resources. Call 211 or visit 211.org. 211. Get connected, get help.
We may come from different organizations,
but we work together to protect the Huron River for everyone.
Neighborhood storm drains carry water directly to local creeks and streams. No filters, no treatment.
Storm drains also help reduce street flooding when it rains.
So clearing storm drains and the areas nearby of trash and leaves helps keep them for rain only.
It is easy to do your part by adopting a storm drain.
Find a storm drain, check it, and clear it every month.
So keep storm drains for rain only.
There's one water, and it's ours to protect.
We as Michiganders feel connected to this resource in a way that I think is really powerful.
Conservation starts with a caring, committed community.
For me, it's peaceful to have a relationship with the river.
Every single one of us has a role to make sure that those waterways stay safe and healthy, being careful about what goes down the storm drain.
Just even eliminating some of your single-use plastic makes a difference.
There's one water, and it's ours to protect.
Did you know that nearly 3.31 million Americans don't get their annual checkup? Going to the doctor regularly is extremely important and is a crucial factor in maintaining good health. Make sure you are visiting your local doctor often and telling them about any health concerns you have. For more information, contact your local healthcare provider. This message is brought to you by WBHS Digital Media Arts Program and 89.3 Lalthsa FM.
People are getting out to walk and bike in higher numbers. More vulnerable road users and higher speed traffic can be a dangerous combination. Crash severity has increased, so if you're driving, be sure to slow down and look for people. There's no need to speed. If you're biking, ride with traffic. If you're walking, avoid stepping into the road if possible. If you have to walk in the street, walk facing traffic. Learn more at walkbikedrivesafe.org.
When times get dark, we can't see the help that's all around us. When you don't know where to turn, let 211 be your guiding light.
How can I help you?
Our guides are ready to connect you with the help you need. For help with food, healthcare, mental health, and other resources. Call 211 or visit 211.org. 211. Get connected, get help.
Parents do a lot of worrying. Get your kids caught up on childhood vaccines to protect them from these 14 preventable diseases, and you'll have 14 fewer things to worry about. Vaccines are safe and effective and save lives. So let's get caught up on vaccines and worry about something else. Get the facts at ivaccinate.org.
We may come from different organizations,
but we work together to protect the Huron River for everyone.
Most of the pollution that goes into our rivers is carried by rainwater that flows off of roads, parking lots, and rooftops.
The leaves and bark of a single tree can retain a surprising amount of rainwater. Depending on its size and species, it could be 100 gallons or more.
It is estimated that an urban forest can reduce annual runoff by up to 7%.
Here's one thing that we know can help keep our water clean.
Plant a tree.
Plant a tree.
Plant a tree.
There's one water, and it's ours to protect.
One of the things you can look for in your friends is a change in behavior.
These can be big changes, they can be small changes in mood, physical appearance.
They may be sleeping less or sleeping more, drinking more, or their eating patterns may be different.
One big change that can be pretty obvious is change in motivation. Do they no longer want to play basketball? Do they no longer want to play video games?
Now that we're spending more time online and in virtual settings, it's really important to pay attention to the language that your friend is using and the words they're using to communicate.
So when we text our friends, are they taking longer amounts of time to respond? Are they not responding at all? You don't have to be an expert to try to recognize these signs. The second that you feel it in your gut and that you're concerned, that's the second to have the conversation and open the door to what might be going on.
Whatever gets you talking.
Welcome back to the Megacast. I'm Tyler Keefe, alongside Calvin Brown, our studio producer and board operator, who joins me each and every day here in our studios in West Bloomfield Township, where we broadcast live from 10 a.m. to 12 noon across Oakland County and all throughout the state of Michigan on our website on CivicCenterTV.com and on My Michigan TV or My. Learn more information about everywhere that we broadcast and find us on demand for full episodes and individual interviews on our website, CivicCenterTV.com/Megacast. Joining us now is Anthony Guest. He is an associate professor of theater at Oakland University and the director of their upcoming production of the 25th annual Putnam County Spelling Bee, and he's also joined by a couple of actors from the production as well. Anthony, thanks for being with us today.
Hey, thank you for asking me to come in.
Appreciate it. So coming up, the shows are November 11th through the 14th and the 18th through the 21st at the Varner Studio Theater, and the show is the 25th annual Putnam County Spelling Bee. Tell us a little bit about this play. What drew you, or what drew Oakland University to put on this production this year, and what people can expect when they come out to the Varner Studio Theater?
Absolutely. This is our triumphant return to musical theater on campus here in the Department of Theater in the School of Music, Theater, and Dance. We can't be more excited to bring this particular story to our audiences, our students, and our community. The 25th annual Putnam County SPIE was a Tony Award-winning musical in the early 2000s. It follows 6 sort of tweens as they make their way through the spelling bee that takes place on stage, in the hopes that one of them, the finalists, will make it to the national spelling bee in Washington, D.C. What makes this play particularly special is that the audience is part of the show. They actually are contestants. So we actually asked 4 of the audience members that come up, and they become contestants in the spelling bee itself. The audience is the audience in the spelling bee, so it's as if the spelling bee is happening live with audience participation, and we just see whether or not these audience members can beat the actors in the spelling bee.
We're joined by Anthony Guest, Associate Professor of Theater at Oakland University and the director of their upcoming Oakland University production of the 25th Annual Putnam County Spelling Bee. Their shows November 11th through the 14th and the 18th through the 21st at the Varner Studio Theater on campus at Oakland University. You can learn more information at oakland.edu/SMTD and purchase tickets at etix.com. And so this is, you said, first show back in the musical theater setting. What ultimately led to the decision to come back with the 25th Annual Putnam County Spelling Bee? It's a really fun show, but on top of that, what ultimately was the decision to choose this production of all of your options in musical theater?
Yes. Well, you know, with the pandemic still happening, the cast is a smaller cast as musicals are concerned. It's a cast of 10. Although all 10 actors have understudies as well. So we've been working, we rehearse 4 hours a night, 5 days a week. We've been doing that for about 6 or 7 weeks now. We're in tech right now. We have 2 final dresses tonight. But the show, it's interesting. Some of the themes in the show is about winning, the pressures of winning, and is winning the most important thing. You'll find that not only this play is about competition, it's about the stresses in life for these youngsters, but it's also how they connect with each other in terms of building friendships. And maybe being the best speller in the county isn't the most important thing. Maybe it's the connections that we make with other people and the friendships that we gain through the process. And I think that's something we can learn in our particular present political circle, and how we connect with each other, and that winning may not always be the most important thing in life.
We're joined by Anthony Guest, Associate Professor of Theater at Oakland University, Director of the upcoming OU production of the 25th Annual Putnam County Spelling Bee. And in terms of COVID-19, you mentioned that it's back in person. It's a smaller cast for this particular musical, which helps with the COVID situation, but you're also going to be having people back in person at the Varner Studio Theater for the production of this play and having that interaction with the audience as well. What sort of COVID restrictions or COVID precautions are in place for the viewers and for the actors as well?
Yeah, for sure. We're taking this very seriously. We think it's important for actors in their training. I mean, as you can imagine, in theater especially, and in all the arts, not being able to perform the last 18 months, it can be quite stressful. What we do is live, and we're not a streaming service. And so what's really nice about this show is that this is an experience that you're not going to get at home, watching Netflix. This is an experience that you're going to be involved in. So some of the COVID protocols are the cast is 100% vaccinated. They are tested. They're being tested right now, actually, so that they're clear to go on Thursday. But we have our general rule is only one person can take off a mask at a time, the actors. So during their solo, they're able to take their mask off. The audience also has to be fully vaccinated. So before you come, you might want to think about bringing your vaccination card in or a picture of it, and so you'll be screened at the door. So, and then audience members must remain masked at all times. So, and our actors our temperatures are checked every show, but they are tested each week. So this week they'll be tested, and then next week, before they do the last week of the runs, they'll be tested as well.
We're joined by Anthony Guest, Associate Professor of Theater at Oakland University and the Director of the upcoming production of the 25th Annual Putnam County Spelling Bee. Their show times November 11th and 12th, Thursday and Friday of this week at 8 p.m., Saturday the 13th, 2 o'clock and 8 o'clock p.m., Sunday this week at 2 p.m. for a matinee. Then next week, Thursday and Friday, 8 p.m., Saturday, 2 p.m. and 8 p.m. And next week, Sunday, November 21st, they'll have their matinee finale at 2 p.m., the 25th Annual Putnam County Spelling Bee. Tickets for the musical, $12 for students, $22 for the general public, and can be purchased online at etix.com. And Anthony, in terms of preparation for this, getting back into the theater, getting back into that in-person setting and having that interaction, especially for a play like this that is so interactive and has such improvisational components to it. What was it like for your actors coming back into that situation after being apart for 18 months and other virtual acting opportunities, and then for you as a director of a production like this as well?
Well, it was a joy to be back in the saddle, if you will, and being able to be live with students again. I think one of the things about this show, it's a comedy. At its heart, it's a comedy. There's a lot of touching moments. You'll learn a lot about these kids and their backstories, and some of them are very moving and very touching. And I think that's an interesting theme in the play as well. Is as these kids are working very hard to be the best spellers, they all have some troubled home lives. Things are working through as well, and that's an important part of the show too. But for us to be back in the rehearsal room was such a joy, just to be with each other, and because of the comedy, to laugh with each other, learn comic technique, and that's what we just are so excited to bring this to an audience, just to see us be that theatrical contract with the audience, to be able to laugh and to commune once again and have that community engagement. For some students, it is, and for me too, there's a certain amount of stamina that's involved. In some ways, you're very much like an athlete, especially with musical theater, where you are performing, singing and dancing, acting. This particular show runs about an hour and 50 minutes with no intermission. So it's an hour and 50-minute workout. It's like, let's go for a jog for an hour and 50 minutes. So there's a certain amount of stamina involved. So we had to build our stamina up because we've been off, and most of our students, we certainly have done a lot of acting classes over Zoom and things like that. But stamina's, and then just coming back still with the idea of the virus and the being in a pandemic, there's a certain amount of anxiety that's still involved with that. So I think there's a little bit of a mix of joy and love for what we do and being in the rehearsal room, but a little trepidation and stamina building in order to make sure we stay safe, but yet comfortable.
We're joined by Anthony Guest, Associate Professor of Theater at Oakland University. He's the director of their upcoming production of the 25th Annual Putnam County Spelling Bee that will be at the Varner Studio Theater November 11th through the 14th, Thursday through Sunday of this week, and Thursday through Sunday of next week, November 18th through the 21st. Anthony, just another minute with you. Anything else you'd like to say about the show or about the theater program at this time before we let you go?
Yeah, like I was saying before, I think this is an experience that you'll never get either on your television or even in the theater. Like I said, that this experience is where the audience is so connected to the story and engaged throughout the whole period of time. You're going to laugh, you're going to be moved, and the sense of improv, the sense of that anything can happen. If we have a really good speller up there from the audience, they can make things really interesting. But for family and friends who are there and they see their loved one up there, in the spelling bee itself, there's something, that kind of magic of being connected to the audience in that way that you really can't get in any other medium. So I'm really excited about that. This is one of the reasons why we chose this show for a sort of triumphant return back into Varner Theater. So $12 for students, like you said, $22 for community members. And I can guarantee that you'll have a good time and it'll be worth it. So hopefully we'll see everybody come on out.
Yeah, it is a really fun show. I was in it in a high school production way back when, just 8 years ago or so. And so a really fun show. And yeah, I played Leaf Coney Bear's dad. Very small role. It was my first show as a senior. I just did it for fun, and, but a lot of fun. It was a great show, and I know that the audiences that came to see it really enjoyed it. So I'm sure they will very much enjoy it as well in your production over there at Oakland University. Thank you so much for joining us, Anthony.
Thank you. Thank you.
Appreciate it. Again, you can get your tickets on etix.com and learn more at oakland.edu/SMTD. That is going to do it for today's edition of the show. Big thank you to all of our guests, including Anthony Guest, Associate Professor of Theater at Oakland University, Lalthsa Cunningham from JVS Human Services, Amira Daboul, Chuck Christian, the former University of Michigan tight end, to talk to us about the horrible tragedies that have happened on their campus there in the Robert Anderson scandal. And then, of course, we were joined by Dr. Andrea Stoner from the Michigan Institute of Neurological Disorders, and Amira Daboul, author of Awafi from Amira's Kitchen, who joined us earlier on in the show. Big thank you to our crew as well: Calvin Brown, our studio producer and board operator, Jared Clark, our Zoom producer, and Larry Nyland, our booking producer, getting our guests booked for the show, scheduled for the show, getting us all the notes that we need so we can have great interviews with them each and every day. You can find all of our interviews and our full episodes on demand on our website, civiccentertv.com. Just click on our Megacast link, where you can also learn more information about all of our partnering community, television, radio, and web outlets all across the state of Michigan. Then over on our coronavirus page, you can learn more information about COVID-19. Keep yourself safe and informed during this pandemic from resources at the Centers for Disease Control and Prevention, the Michigan Department of Health and Human Services, and the Oakland County Health Division. Thank you for tuning in today. We will be back tomorrow morning on Civic Center TV. Coming up next, it is The Splash with Maddie Mushkin. Over on My Michigan TV, it is, of course, Steve Leto Live, and we'll be back tomorrow at 10 a.m.